In today's video, I decided to combine 5 of my most recent stories. This includes ships that vanished off the coast of South Africa without a trace, lost for over 100 years, treasure pirate ships that left a fortune at the bottom of the ocean ready to be found, and ships that left people stranded on an island, and the havoc that incurred. Let's talk about it. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the video. The Batavia, 1628. Imagine being stranded on a barren island, thousands of miles from civilization. No food, no water, just endless ocean and a growing fear that the people around you may be more dangerous than the elements themselves. This isn't just a survival story, it's a nightmare. A nightmare that became a reality in 1629 when the Dutch East Indian Company's ship, the Batavia, wrecked off the coast of Australia. But the real horror? It wasn't the sinking. It was what happened afterwards. This is the story of mutiny, madness, and one of the most terrifying shipwreck survival stories in history. 1628, the Batavia, one of the most advanced ships in the Dutch East Indian Company's fleet, set sail. A massive merchant vessel bound for the East Indies. On board, 340 people, sailors, soldiers, merchants, civilians, even women and children. The ship is packed with valuable trade goods and a fortune in silver coins, but below deck, whispers of betrayal. The ship's commander, Francisco Pelcent, strict, ruthless, and his second in command, Geronimus Cornelius, he hates him for it. Cornelis, a failed apothecary with a dangerous mind, has no loyalty to the Dutch East Indian Company. He gathers a group of discontented crew members. They begin to plan something far worse. Mutiny. But before they can strike, fate intervenes. June 4th, 1629. In the dead of night, the Batavia crashes into a reef. The ship is mortally wounded. Water pours in. Panic spreads. Some drown, others cling to wreckage. But more than 250 survivors, women, children, soldiers, make it to a nearby chain of small islands. They've survived the wreck, but their nightmare is just beginning. Stranded in hell. The islands are barren, no fresh water, little food. Desperation sets in. Pelcent, the commander, takes a small boat and sets off on a daring 33-day voyage to Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, to get help. But in his absence, the island descends into chaos, and at the center of it all, Geronimus Cornelius. With no one to stop him, Cornelius seizes control. At first, he pretends to be a leader, rationing supplies, organizing the survivors, but soon, his true nature emerges. He realizes that if they all stay, they'll all starve. His solution? Murder. One by one, Cornelius and his mutineers begin executing survivors, the sick, the weak, anyone who opposes him. He even sends groups to nearby islands on supply missions. But there are no supplies. He leaves them there to die. The island becomes a living nightmare. Women taken as personal slaves. Those who resist, tortured, executed. Cornelius rules like a warlord, using fear to keep control. But not everybody submits. On a distant island, a soldier named Hayes and a small group of men, sent there under false pretenses, make a discovery. They find water, they find food, and when they learn of Cornelius' reign of terror, they prepare for war. The final battle. Cornelius, drunk on his own power, plans to swipe out Hayes and his men before they can become a threat. But he underestimates them. Hayes and his men fight back, armed with crude weapons, sharpened sticks, makeshift clubs. They ambush Cornelius' forces. A brutal clash, hand-to-hand combat, men fighting for their lives, and in the chaos, they capture Cornelius. Then, just as the battle rages, sails appear on the horizon. Pelcent has returned. When he steps ashore, he sees the horror. Mass graves, burned remains of the camp, and he realizes what happened. Cornelius and his mutineers are immediately put on trial. Some executed on the spot, hanged from makeshift gallows on the very island they terrorized. Others are taken back to Batavia for trial, And Cornelius? His punishment fits his crimes. His hands are cut off, and then he's hanged. The legacy of the Batavia. The wreck of the Batavia was rediscovered in the 1960s. Today, pieces of it can be seen in Australia's museums. It remains one of the most horrifying shipwreck stories in history, not just because of the wreck itself, but because of what people are capable of. When civilization collapses, this wasn't just a shipwreck. It was a descent into madness, a story of horror, survival, and the darkest parts of human nature. The Maravillas, 1654. Picture this. You're aboard a massive Spanish treasure galleon sailing across the open ocean. The sun is blazing, the sails are full of wind, and deep in the ship's hold lies a fortune. Gold, silver, emeralds, enough wealth to make a king jealous. But there's a problem. You're not alone on this ship. Dozens of other men, sailors, and soldiers alike are packed into tight, sweaty quarters. Food is running low, and the ocean is unpredictable. Ahead, a dangerous stretch of reefs in the Bahamas. That could mean certain doom. This is the story of the Nuestra Señora de las Maravillas, a Spanish galleon on a high-stakes journey that ended in one of the worst shipwrecks in history. And even today, over 350 years later, treasure is still being found. The year is 1671, and Spain is desperate for money. Decades of war, pirate attacks, and failed colonies have drained the empire's wealth. So Spain relies on its treasure fleets, massive convoys of ships loaded with gold and silver from the Americas, sent back to Europe to fund its wars and economy. The Nuestra Señora de las Maravillas, Spanish for Our Lady of the Wonders, was part of that system, but it had a special mission. This ship was not carrying new treasure. It was on a recovery mission, sailing to Spain with treasure that had been rescued from another shipwreck, a fleet that had sunk years earlier. It wasn't just silver bars and gold coins. The ship also carried illegal, smuggled treasure. Private merchants and corrupt officials had stashed away gems, jewelry, and gold chains, hoping to sneak their wealth past the Spanish crown. But none of it would make it home. Life aboard a treasure galleon. The voyage had already been long. The Maravillas had left Havana, Cuba on January 1st, 1671, traveling with a convoy of other Spanish ships. Life on board was tough. Cramped quarters, strict discipline, and food that was, well, let's just say that you wouldn't want to eat it. Most sailors survived on hard biscuits called hardtack, which were so tough that you had to soak them in water just to chew them. And if you weren't careful, you might bite into a live weevil, little bugs that burrowed inside the bread. Drinking water was also a problem. Stored in wooden barrels, it often turned green with algae. Many sailors preferred drinking watered-down wine or beer because at least it wouldn't make them sick. Meanwhile, down below, the ship's most valuable cargo was hidden away. Massive silver bars stamped with royal seals, heavy wooden chests filled with gold coins, and emerald-studded jewelry. The crew knew the ship was carrying treasure, but no one knew just how much, and they would never get to find out. The disaster that doomed the ship. On the night of January 4th, 1671, disaster struck. The convoy was passing through the treacherous Bahama Banks, an area filled with hidden reefs, jagged formations lurking just below the water's surface, ready to tear a ship apart. Navigation was difficult even for the best captains. Then came the fatal mistake. Another ship in the fleet veered off course and slammed straight into the Maravillas, shattering part of its hull. The impact threw sailors from the deck, and before anyone could react, the currents pushed the ship straight onto a coral reef. The ship was doomed. Water poured in, the hull cracked, and the galleon started breaking apart. Men scrambled for lifeboats, but there weren't enough. Some tried swimming, but sharks had already arrived, drawn by the thrashing and screaming. Survivors later told chilling stories of men clinging to floating debris, only to be pulled underwater by the hungry predators. Of the 650 people on board, only 45 survived. The ocean had claimed another treasure ship, Where is the ship located? The treasure lost beneath the waves. After the sinking, Spanish officials tried desperately to recover the treasure. They sent teams of pearl divers, free divers who could hold their breath for several minutes, to search the wreckage. They managed to recover some treasure, but most of it was gone, scattered across miles of ocean floor. The wreck was too deep, the currents too strong, and the technology at the time wasn't enough. And so, the treasure of the Maravillas was lost to time, until centuries later. In the 1970s, legendary explorer Robert Marks launched an expedition to find the wreck. Using early sonar technology, he pinpointed the location and sent divers down. What they found was incredible. They discovered silver bars, still stamped with the Royal Spanish seal. Each one weighed over 70 pounds and had been sitting on the ocean floor for over 300 years. Alongside them, coins, weapons, and broken pieces of the ship. But that was just the beginning. In 2022, treasure hunters made an even more spectacular discovery: gold chains, emerald rings, and a gold medallion featuring the Cross of Santiago, a symbol of Spanish knights. One of the most valuable finds, a gold ring with a massive Colombian emerald, possibly worn by an aristocrat or officer. But here's the thing, most of the treasure is still missing. It's buried beneath the sand, hidden deep in the reef, just waiting to be found. The Mignonette, 1884. This isn't just a horror story. It really happened. This is the case of the Mignonette, one of the most infamous shipwrecks in history, where desperation led to murder and cannibalism and a trial that shocked the world. The voyage and disaster. In 1884, the Mignonette was a small yacht purchased in England, set to sail to Australia. It wasn't built for long ocean voyages, but that didn't stop four men from taking the risk. Tom Dudley, the experienced captain; Edwin Stevens, the first mate; Edmund Brooks, a seasoned sailor; and Richard Parker, a 17-year-old cabin boy eager for adventure. Just a few weeks into their journey, disaster struck. A violent storm battered the Mignonette. On July 5th, 1884, the yacht was hit by a rogue wave. It snapped like a twig and sank within minutes, leaving the crew scrambling into a tiny 13-foot lifeboat with almost no supplies. Just 2 tins of turnips and no fresh water. Adrift in the vast South Atlantic, the 4 men faced a slow and agonizing death. Descent into madness. At first, they rationed the turnips, but those were gone in days. They caught a sea turtle. Once that meat was gone, hunger gnawed at them like a living thing. They tried drinking seawater, against every sailor's instinct. It only made things worse. By day 12, Richard Parker, the youngest and weakest of the crew, was fading fast. He had been the first to drink the seawater. Now he lay delirious, unable to move. That's when Captain Dudley made a grim proposal. He and the other men drew straws, a method sailors had used in desperate times. But before fate could decide, Dudley made the choice himself. On day 19, with Parker too weak to resist, Dudley pinned him down and slit his throat with a penknife. His blood was collected in a tin, his first gift to his crewmates. They drank it. Over the next few days, they ate Parker's flesh, surviving off their fallen companion. But the universe had a cruel twist in store. Just 4 days after Parker's murder, a passing German ship, the Montezuma, spotted the lifeboat and rescued the survivors. They were alive, but at what cost? At first, the men kept quiet, but once they returned to England, the truth came out. It was a legal and moral nightmare, a case unlike any other. Dudley and Stevens were charged with murder. They pleaded necessity. What else could we do? We had to kill him, or we would have died too. The case became a landmark trial. The court ruled that necessity is not a defense for murder, a decision that shaped legal history. Dudley and Stevens were sentenced to death. In the end, their punishment was reduced to just 6 months in prison. Brooks, the sailor who hadn't taken part in Parker's killing, walked free. The SS Waratah, 1909. In 1909, a grand steamship vanished without a trace, leaving behind one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. This is the story of the SS Waratah. The SS Waratah was a luxurious passenger and cargo ship built in 1908 by the Blue Anchor Line. Measuring over 450 feet long, the ship was designed to carry both wealthy travelers and immigrants seeking new lives. But on its second voyage, the Waratah set out on a journey it would never complete. On July 26, 1909, the Waratah departed Durban, South Africa with 211 passengers and crew aboard. After a brief stop in Cape Town, it was supposed to continue its journey to London. But somewhere between Durban and Cape Town, the ship simply vanished. When the Waratah didn't arrive as scheduled, a massive search began. Rescue ships combed the seas for any sign of wreckage or survivors. But despite weeks of searching, no debris, no lifeboats, and no bodies were ever found. Over the years, countless theories emerged about the ship's fate. Did a freak wave capsize the ship? Did cargo in the hold shift, causing it to lose balance and sink? Or was it something more sinister, like an explosion? With no evidence, the disappearance of the SS Waratah has fueled speculation for more than a century. Even today, shipwreck hunters and explorers continue to search for the lost Waratah, but despite modern technology and decades of effort, the ship remains undiscovered. Her final resting place still a mystery deep in the ocean. The SS Waratah's story is a reminder that the sea still holds its secrets. Will we ever uncover what truly happened to the lost ship and her 211 souls? Only time, and perhaps a bit of luck, will tell. The Whydah Galley, 1717. Off the coast of Cape Cod, beneath the churning waves, lies the final resting place of the most infamous pirate ships in history, the Whydah Galley. Once the pride of a notorious pirate crew, the ship met a violent end in 1717, taking with it a fortune of gold and a dark legacy of terror on the high seas. But how did the Whydah go from a slave ship to the most feared vessel in the Atlantic? And what led to this catastrophic shipwreck? Let's uncover the lost story of the Whydah Galley and one of the greatest pirate treasures ever found. The Whydah Galley wasn't always a pirate ship. It was originally built in 1715 in England as a slave ship, at least 110 feet long and armed with 18 cannons. It was designed to transport enslaved people from Africa to the Caribbean to North America, a dark and tragic past of history. But in early 1717, fate took an unexpected turn. While sailing through the Caribbean, the Whydah was attacked by one of the most feared pirates of all time, Captain Samuel "Black Sam" Bellamy. Bellamy and his crew seized the Whydah without much of a fight. Unlike many brutal pirates of the area, Bellamy had a reputation of being fair to his prisoners. Instead of killing the ship's crew, he offered them a choice: join his pirate fleet or be set free. Many chose piracy, and the Whydah Galley was transformed into a pirate flagship. Now under Bellamy's command, the Whydah became one of the most powerful pirate ships in the Atlantic. With its speed and heavy firepower, it plundered more than 50 ships in just a few months, collecting a fortune in gold, silver, and jewels. Bellamy wasn't just any pirate. He was known as the Prince of Pirates. He didn't just steal riches. He styled himself as a kind of Robin Hood of the seas, taking from the wealthy merchants and giving a share of the loot to his men and those in need. In April 1717, Bellamy made a fatal decision. He set course for Cape Cod, possibly to reunite with his lover, Maria Hallett. As the Whydah and her fleet sailed up the coast, a deadly storm was brewing on the horizon. On the night of April 26, 1717, a powerful northeaster slammed into the Whydah. The raging winds and towering waves proved too much, even for a ship as mighty as this one. The Whydah was tossed into a sandbar and capsized, breaking apart in the storm. More than 140 crew members, including Captain Bellamy himself, were lost at sea. Only 2 men survived to tell the tale. For centuries, the wreck of the Whydah remained lost, buried beneath the waves, and shifting sands of Cape Cod, but its legacy never faded. Many believed the treasure was still down there, waiting to be found. In 1984, underwater explorer Barry Clifford made an astonishing discovery. He found the wreck of the whydah, making it the first authenticated pirate ship ever recovered. Among the artifacts was the ship's bell, inscribed with the words, "The Whydah Galley, 1716, definitive proof that this was Bellamy's lost pirate ship. To this day, treasure hunters continue to uncover gold, silver, and historical artifacts from the wreck site, but many believe that much of the Whydah's fortune is still buried beneath the ocean floor, waiting to be discovered. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're enjoying the storytelling series, I'm going to start focusing on more true crime stuff, I think, as that's quite a popular genre right now. Be sure to like and subscribe. That really helps the videos do well. I'll see you guys next time.